This is Monday, July 19th, and this is the Jupiter Files. Welcome, everybody. My name is Bryan Lunduke. I'm here doing the inaugural episode of the Jupiter Files. This is going to be a very different episode than normal. What Jupiter Files is, for the out of the loop among you, is a show that is broadcast here at 7 a.m. Pacific time out of the Pacific Northwest every weekday, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. So you're probably tired, you're probably groggy, and you're thinking, gee, I really wish I could get a lot of paranormal news, UFO news. I would like to hear about the big giant monster living in Lake Winnipeg. Well, that's what this show is about. That's where you get that important information, is all right here. Now, this episode again is gonna be a little different than most. I want to take some time to talk to you about why we're doing this show and how we're going to be approaching things. There are shows that handle these topics. There's shows that handle, the black helicopters out there, the government conspiracies, the UFOs, and the monsters in the lakes, and the ghosts and the paranormal. All those things are covered by a lot of people. There are the crazies out there, and I want to be as nice as I can here, because there are people that believe very passionately in whatever it is that they believe in, and I don't want to crush their beliefs. If someone believes that there's a giant flying spaghetti monster, per se, and they believe that it is hovering over their house, but no one can see it but them, and every time they try and take a picture, it gets all blurry. I don't want to crush their beliefs. I don't want to make them sad. But that said, I'm going to approach it from an air of skepticism, because I just don't see the flying spaghetti monster that's all purple and crazy above their house. On the flip side, there are the skeptics. Skeptic magazine is a great example. I believe it's just skeptic.com is the website for the skeptic community, where they don't believe in anything. They generally take a view of the world that says, unless there is extreme ironclad, chiseled in stone proof that something exists, then it probably doesn't. That is boring. I just hate to say it, but that is just dreadfully dull. It's just a boring way to go through life. I fall somewhere kind of in the middle. I like to see proof for things. I like to get my hands on something. I like to feel the tangible nature of something before I actually believe that it's real. I like to see the pictures. I like to see the video. I like to see things for my own eyes before I believe them. If there is a UFO hanging over airports in China, like there is right now, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I want to actually see it. I want to see something more than a very distant, blurry light shape behind a couple of buildings that really could just be a reflection off a piece of tinfoil, for all I know. I want to see more. I want to see the proof. But that said, I don't require there to be, 50 different, angles of the photo. I don't require there to be, stereograms. I don't require stereograms. That's just kind of ridiculous. But you know what I'm saying. I don't require that extreme, over-the-top sorts of proof. Now, one of the famous skeptics of our time, Carl Sagan, who I have a huge amount of respect for, and if you have not seen it or have not seen it recently, the series Cosmos by Carl Sagan is just way too much fun. Whether or not you agree with some of his stances on whether we've been visited by extraterrestrials or not, it's a great deal of fun, and it's an amazing show. But Carl Sagan, put forth that. And I'm basically paraphrasing here because I don't have the quote in front of me, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That meaning, if an alien has landed in downtown Tacoma, Washington, we need some extraordinary proof that an alien just landed in downtown Tacoma, Washington. It can't just be someone kind of walks along and says, hey, I think I saw an alien in downtown Tacoma, Washington, and everyone just takes it as obvious fact. That I generally agree with. You do need to have real tangible evidence to back something up. Now, we're broadcasting here out of Everett, Washington, which is just about 20 minutes north of Seattle, Washington. And we are, of course, generally in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. Now, the thing that makes that interesting to me is that the Pacific Northwest is a hub of activity of this nature. This is the home of Bigfoot. This is where Bigfoot reigns. There have been Bigfoot sightings all across North America, of course. However, they're all wrong. There's most of the sightings have all been up here. In fact, most of the sightings for Bigfoot and Sasquatch over the last 10 or 15 years have actually been centered around the Vancouver, Washington area, which is along the Columbia River. Likewise, around here we have the Thunderbird, which is that monstrously large bird that creates an almost sonic boom as it goes by. It's not really a sonic boom, but a large cracking sound that kind of basically rides along the storm fronts because it's so large. It requires a lot of just massive wind power to stay afloat, and more along the UFO lines, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. The general Puget Sound, Pacific Northwest area is one of the key areas that really kicked off the UFO craze in the United States. Back in, I believe it was 1947. It's kind of termed as the Maury Island incident. Down near Tacoma, Washington, down at the very bottom of the Puget Sound, there was an incident. Basically, a man was on a boat and claimed that he was actually on the boat with his dog. Was kind of cruising along on his boat, and I won't go into too much of the details, though it's a rather interesting story, but it's been rehashed quite a lot out there. If you want more information, check out Maury Island Incident, Maury. And he claims that a flying saucer hovered overhead and dropped out from its underbelly a large mass of kind of molten sludge onto his boat that kind of burned through his boat. So they called out the government, and this was kind of the first big publicized UFO encounter of its kind of the late 1940s. And who responded to it? Well, the Men in Black, of course. At that point, there really hadn't been much in the way of Men in Black. This was the first Men in Black sort of thing, and that sort of kicked off that craze. Now, what exactly happened after that? That's where a lot of the mystery comes in, and that's really why this grabbed people's attention and imaginations at the time. The Men in Black investigated the claims and left. They took off from an Air Force base out of southern Washington here and crash landed, and that was that. They died in the landing and the crash landing, and that made it all the more spooky. So this general area, the Pacific Northwest, is I don't want to say it's a hotbed for activity, but it has had its fair share of important, not necessarily paranormal, but outside of the commonly accepted norm for events, such as the Maury Island incident, or Bigfoot. I mean, most people generally believe Bigfoot. That's ridiculous. There's no such thing as Bigfoot. But a lot of people around here, well, they do believe that Bigfoot's out there. It's more of an accepted norm as much as it's a norm anywhere. Now, one of the things we would like to do in this show is bring on the experts in the field, bring on the individuals who have been there, who have seen something, who have experienced something, who have studied something. So we've got some people lined up to actually talk about Bigfoot and to talk about the Thunderbird in the coming up episodes. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Now I'm not gonna say which day. We're still moving around the schedules, but stay tuned. This will be happening every day as we go forward. But along the same lines, besides just the people who have seen things, besides the people who believe things or have studied particular events, particular UFO phenomenon, etc., we really want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what you guys think, what you guys have experienced, what you guys believe. If you think some of these people, we want you to be able to feel free to call in and say so. Let's try and be nice. Let's try and be respectable. But just the same, we want to make sure that everyone on both sides, the skeptics and the hardcore believers, and everyone in the middle, can kind of come together and talk about an event. Let's kind of dive into one of the big ones right now, and that's the UFO over China. Now this one's kind of intriguing here. Let me bring up a screenshot here for you so you can see. Those watching the video version. There we go. We just that was pretty awesome. There we go. That was a technical glitch. That was our first technical glitch. It's a very important milestone for any show. So what you've got here are the photos. Now this is happening over Hangzhou, China. There it is on the little map there. It's an airport in Hangzhou, China, where there's been a couple of UFO sightings in recent days. Now here's the problem I have with these sightings. You can see in that right hand picture there's a little circle at the very, very top middle. That is supposedly a UFO. Now there's not a whole great deal of better pictures than that. So we're gonna go ahead and play a few videos here, just so you can see how the Chinese media is reporting this. These are some of the photos that we're getting, and they're very stereotypical in terms of UFO photos, as in they're very far away. They really don't look all that good. They're hard to take. And look at that. Some of the videos have even been removed recently. So that causes me a whole lot of pause. I look at that and I say, okay, so many people are seeing these UFOs. Why aren't there more photos? Why are we not having more videos? Now in the 80s and 90s, I can totally understand that. I mean, let's be realistic. If in the 1950s and 1960s, you see a flying saucer overhead, you don't exactly have a cell phone with a really nice camera in it. You can just whip it out and go click, chick, and you have a great picture of it. It takes time to set up a decent picture back then. You didn't necessarily have a great camera always on you at all times. It makes sense why we got blurry photos. It makes sense why we only got a picture just as a flying saucer was leaving, so it was too far away to really make out. That makes sense. Nowadays, however, the level has been upped. We now expect to be able to whip out our 5 megapixel camera right on our brand new cell phone and click. It takes 3 seconds. Boom. We should get a picture. So these photos from that we're getting back from this most recent sighting in Hangzhou, China, kind of make me cock my head to the side and go, well, I can't explain exactly what that particular thing is, but it's just there's no evidence there. It's not that there's no hard ironclad evidence. It's that there's really nothing at all. There's just enough proof to whet my appetite, just enough to get me interested, and that's not enough for me. That's just not quite enough. I want very much to think that hey, there's totally aliens hanging out over there. Yeah, they're in awesome spaceships. Of course they are. And I want to think that. I want to think that there's a ton of them. I want to think that they're just flooding China, going, "Hey, China people, let's look at the alien stuff and technology. That's awesome." But if all we're getting is 3 blurry lights, that's just not enough for me. So I'm hopeful. Now, many of you will probably point out that if you have a cell phone camera, let's say you have an Android phone or an iPhone, and you or your BlackBerry, and you whip it out, and BlackBerry is not a good example, but Android phone or iPhone, you whip it out and you go to take a picture, and it's night. It's 11 p.m. at night. It's pitch black outside, and you go click. Now, there's a couple of problems with that whole process. One is that your phone probably doesn't have great focusing lenses on it, so you're not going to be able to focus properly on an item that far away. The second is lighting issues. In the blackness, all you're going to have out there are a couple points of light, so that is going to be more difficult to take a picture of. It's going to be better than it was in the old days, so we should be getting more than we're getting, but it is certainly not an easy task. The other thing is the people having nice DSLRs, good digital cameras with great lenses are becoming much more prevalent. More and more, it's affordable, it's consumer level at this point, and those are decent enough cameras to get out there and take pictures of these events quite well. So then the real issue becomes whether or not people have enough time. Once you see a flying saucer, once you see some lights out there in the sky dangling up over an airport, peeking out amongst the mountain ranges and the sides of the buildings, do you have enough time to pull out your camera and take the picture? Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I'd like to say that even if the flying saucers, the spacecraft, the extraterrestrials are moving at a very, very fast speed, in order to get the shots that we're currently getting, and that is not just streaks of light, they're stationary points of light. That means that they're staying around long enough to get those sorts of good pictures, to throw on your telescoping lens and take a good shot of it. So that does cause me some fair bit of pause, and the skeptics among you will probably be pointing at that and saying, "Yeah, aha! That means that there's no flying saucers up there. People are just taking shots of whether it be weather balloons or just run of the mill, Boeing 727s with their lights in the light moonlight shining off them in a certain way." To that I say you might be partially right, but that said, there's been enough of these sightings over the years that haven't been adequately explained, that my tendency is to say, okay, now wait a minute. There's over, let's say, over Northern California, if there's been 100 reported sightings over the course of X number of days, that can't be explained either through open channel military bases or over airports or the like, that there's something there, that there's something that's worth looking into. Now, will it be little green or gray men flying around in little flying saucers? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. And that's something that I want to know. I want to know what those things are. If there's even the slimmest chance possible that there's little dudes flying around from some other planet in a spaceship that was not constructed on this planet, or heck, even if it was constructed on this planet, don't we want to know? Isn't it worth sifting through thousands upon thousands of, well, this was just a weather balloon, to eventually find the one or the two items that were, yes, that right there, we can't explain that. That comes from an entirely different planet. So that's worthwhile. I do appreciate all the skeptics out there that work tirelessly to debunk the wide variety of sightings out there, because the reality is once we verify that this one sighting, and it becomes public knowledge, and everyone generally hops on board that, yeah, that sighting was not of this world, it is a vessel from another planet. That is what that is. As soon as that happens, that's going to give a huge amount of credence to every sighting, and that's a little bit of an issue. That's a problem that we're definitely going to have to get into. But if the skeptics stay on top of it and continually debunk all the different sightings that come up and gain any sort of traction, whether it be on shows like this or like the Coast to Coast show or the variety of other online sources out there, then that makes it much easier for us to sift through and figure out what is potentially real. So it's definitely very appreciated. One other thing I wanted to touch on today is, and this is most definitely not real. I'm going to throw this up here real quick, but I think it just looks way cool. This right here is a crop formation, and let's see, where is this one at? This one is where is that? It's somewhere in the UK. And if you take a look at it, it's very distinctly man-made. I mean, there's just no point in a flying saucer making anything, or any sort of alien spacecraft making something that's in this shape. That's just a ridiculous shape to make something in, but it does look super cool. I gotta point out that that's just really cool looking. I don't care if this is made by an alien vessel. I don't care if this is made by man. At this point, it's worth looking at, because it's just so incredibly cool, and I very much appreciate that. It's way cool. The amount of work that goes into that is definitely off the charts. Now let's see here. I think I've got some better video of the Chinese UFO here. Now here is a video from ABC News. Here we go. So you can kind of see this up right here, right in the center there. You can see, and there's a little better shot, a strip of light in the upper left-hand corner. And there's a little more zoomed in there. Now see, notice there's the beam of light was coming off of it kind of in a conical shape downward. It's interesting looking. I'll give it that, but it looks, I don't know, it almost looks spotlight-ish. Basically, it just looks like an enlarged street light almost. And it looks cool. I'm not gonna deny that, but it's just not clear enough. It's just not detailed enough for me to say, okay, well that's obviously that's obviously flying saucers. But if anyone has any better shots, send them in to the show. I'll give the contact information in a moment. I'd love to show a little bit better shots of that. If of all the billions and billions of people in China, if you could all go to where those sightings are happening, pull out your best telescoping low light lenses and just sit there and wait, and just wait for it. That would be great. That's what we need. We need like a concerted effort from like the Chinese government to have everyone look in the sky for one solid night and take non-stop high-resolution telescoping photos until we get some of these decent photos here. Now here's another crop circle that recently cropped up. This one is also in the UK. All the greatest crop circles do tend to crop up in England. I'm not really sure what that is, but I like it. I think it's way cool. So check this guy out. This one is this was near. Hey, look at that little pop up there. Old Milverton, Warwickshire, UK. There's no way on earth that this was made by a ship. I mean, it wouldn't make sense. It does. It looks like a. It looks like a mixture between like a Celtic knot and a Star of David mixed with like a hazmat symbol. It's or a soccer ball. Yeah, there we go. Someone in the forum who's watching live just mentioned it looks like a soccer ball, and it totally does. It could just be inspired by the World Cup fever that was going on. But stuff like this just looks very, very cool. Now we know where this stuff comes from. And the reason we know is because we have a little bit of common sense in our brains. We know that people have been making crop circles. When I was a kid, I tried to make one. I did very badly at it. Me and some friends, we went into a field, and it was not a field that was used for production. It was just a field of overgrown grass, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna make a crop circle here. We ended up with a vaguely circular shape with footprints and trampled grass everywhere. It was ridiculous how awful we did at that particular time. But it was still very cool. And if you've ever seen any of the various shows and documentaries where people went around and tried to show how to make a crop circle and how to use, you know, big flat surfaces for slowly tamping down the grass, you've seen kind of how those are made. And ones like this, there's just no way. I mean, look at that thing. I mean, I would be amazed if even one person looked at that and thought, oh my gosh, there are aliens. I mean, because that doesn't have anything to do with aliens landing or Area 51 or any of the variety of things that may have some validity to them, which we can get into bit by bit. We've got a lot of time over the next billions of years. That's just obviously not alien made. That's man made, and it's awesome. And I want more of that stuff to happen, as long as it's not destroying valid crops for people to earn their living. Because I can just see some farmer going out his window, going out his back door, and being, oh crap, and I'm gonna have to sell the truck now because some hooligans made a soccer ball in my field. I would hate to see that happen, but this still does look very, very cool. So get permission first before you do this sort of thing, guys. But don't tell anyone you're doing it outside of like the farmer who owns the land. But that way we can still have some air of mystery around it. I don't actually want to know who created these, but still very, very cool. Now, how this show is going to be working is going to change day by day. We've got a couple of guests coming up this week, where they're going to be on here live in audio, kind of joining me to talk about whatever topic it is they're going to be talking about. Now, obviously, today we spent most of the time talking about the UFO side of things. That's just not generally going to be the case. We're going to move around a lot. Obviously, my area of interest is more on the UFO side, but I kind of go all over the place. I think that it's valid to look at all of these topics, as crazy as me or you or anyone may find them. I think it's valid to check them out, to hear all the different sides, and that way everyone can make informed decisions. We're going to try and be very respectful in this show. If someone comes on again with the purple flying spaghetti monster and you have an opinion of it, and you think they're crazy, please don't call in and say you're totally crazy, you're insane, what are you thinking? But if you can disprove what they're saying, if you can provide some basic logic that makes what they're saying far less likely in a rational manner, that's what I would like to see. Now, on occasion, I'm sure people will get a little bit worked up. For lack of a better word, because people are very passionate about these topics. But just the same, let's try and keep level heads, and let's talk through some of these things, because I think these are some very, very cool topics. So some of the episodes coming up, we're going to be primarily guests, and then on Friday, we're going to be having kind of an open line. If you would like to call in, we'll have an open mic Friday, basically, where we can call in, and if you've got something you want to talk about, you can. If you'd like to respond to some of the previous week's news stories, if you think the person who claimed to have seen Sasquatch in their backyard dancing around to polka music with their dog is crazy, you can call in and talk about that then. Or if you've got backup video that proves that Sasquatch was indeed dancing with the dog, but it wasn't polka music. It was more they were dancing around to karaoke of Mariah Carey. But you've got video to prove it. Definitely hop on and we'll be talking about that stuff on Friday. The open line mic, not the Mariah Carey karaoke. So that about wraps up the inaugural episode. Definitely tune in tomorrow and every day thereafter at 7 a.m. We got a little late start this morning, but typically we'll be live right at 7 a.m. On the button, Monday through Friday. That's 7 a.m. Pacific time. Now check my blog out over at lunduke.com. We'll be blogging about the topics on the show, so you can kind of keep up with it and find some of the links from the various shows if you find interesting and you want to learn a little bit more. Also check out jupiterbroadcasting.com, which is where the show hails from, and you can check out all of our other shows. Later on this evening, you can listen to or view our other show, Jupiter at Night, which is a more general nerdy news show. Definitely worth checking that out. It's a pretty awesome show. They're still working through that one. You have to find the schedule for that. I believe it's 9 p.m., but I'm probably wrong on that. You want to go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and check that out for sure. That about wraps it up for this week. I want to thank everyone for hanging out. And if you've got any news tips, if you've got anything that you think is show worthy, send that over to Bryan at lunduke.com or Bryan at jupiterbroadcasting.com, and we'll see about getting it into one of the upcoming shows. All right, that's it for this episode. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow morning.